welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Peason. With me on the show today, Debbie G and Neo Positivity. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Now, Debbie will be along in just a moment, so she's not quite here, but she'll be here. You know, when you have somebody who's that high energy, she just has to pop in and out all over the place. That's just the way it is. But in the meantime, we have a special guest joining us today. Kimberley Hite is the author. Well, hello.
Speaking of high energy entering the room, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Kimberly Hite is the author of an upcoming book to be released in the first quarter of 22 called Rebel's Guide to More Money. And she says she actually finished writing it today. Like, wow. Okay. And and she says that we leverage the LOA by stepping into the person who already wrote the book. Ooh. Nice theme. I like that. It's for people who feel like rebels, who tend to do things in their own way. I think it's just about everybody here at LOA Today, who have been pushing to have more money and not been successful. By the end of the book, readers will know what they've been doing wrong because it's a step-by-step guide to creating more money. It shows them what might get in their way and how to get back on track. And she loves the beach. She loves laughing, which is a good thing because we do a lot of that here. She loves to be creative. She sounds like just exactly our kind of person, Neil. Hey, how you doing today? I'm Kimberly. You're just like you're glowing there. You're feeling pretty good. It looks like.
I feel amazing, Walt. Thank you so much for having me on your show today. And yes, you're right. I actually finished writing the book last night. So in 3 days, I wrote a book. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. I'm floating on a cloud right now.
Whew. Yeah, because I mean, Neil's written books, I've written books, I've edited books. I know what that's like. It's a process. There's a lot that goes into it. So when you say you wrote it in 3 days, I say, did she sleep?
I did.
Right, Neil? I mean, can you imagine that, Neil? Tell me. Oh, you have to unmute yourself now that your kid's left.
My bad. I have about 9 or 10 chapters written, and I keep getting to the point where I get to a point and I'm like, where did I have that at? Is that already stated?
Yes.
And so the chapters are even outlined on the cover. I have them on the wall, and on the cover they're outlined so I can say, was it in there? Okay, it's in there. But what did I say about it? So I make sure I don't repeat myself. By the time I read it, I don't even remember what I was talking about in the first place. So it's everything. Placement is everything. If I could find somebody to place it all in the right place, then I would have a book published right now. So I commend you on doing that, period, let alone in 3 days. Amazing.
Thank you.
Just amazing. So, and you're also a groundbreaker, too. We were talking about that before the show because you come to us from Cassie Parks, who was on a couple times over the last couple months. And you are one of 2 people who are the first members of her new coaching clinic. I'm not sure what she calls it.
Well, we just figured it out this week. We are the new abundance facilitators for the Future Self University.
Abundance facilitators. And what's the name of the university?
Future Self University.
Future Self.
Oh, okay. Oh, y'all put some thought into that.
Oh, yeah. She's
like
good.
Yeah, that took time. That took time right there. Meditation, tapping into the source. That's beautiful.
And inspiration. That was definitely an inspired idea right there.
Oh, yes. And when we were talking this week, we were going back and forth, and all of a sudden she just said, abundance facilitator. How does that feel? And we both were like, amazing. That's it.
Really cool. Actually, that's very interesting because I've been experimenting with, LOA, of course, stands for Law of Attraction. Mm-hmm. But I've been wanting for quite some time to expand beyond just law of attraction. And we do anyway. I mean, here on the show, we talk about all kinds of stuff, but trying to figure out like what kind of umbrella to call it. And we came up with a variety of different, combinations that spell out LOA. The one I'm working on right now is living our abundance. So kind of tying into the same thing you are right there, but you got a future theme in there, which is really cool. Where'd that come from?
Well, part of Cassie's program is, we have to commit to 5 years, and we actually tap in or step into becoming our future self now, and looking at where she's at 5 years from now or where he's at. And we script from that place.
Okay. All right. That's cool.
Yeah.
And Neil, I just gave you a little mute there for a moment because we're getting a little bit of a feedback loop. So I thought I'd let you know just so you could.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, was that the voice thing or that was tapping?
No, that was coming through on her voice. Her voice was looping.
Like the Debbie thing. All right. Yeah.
So just wanted to let you know about that.
But
so the book, I guess I'm finding the book kind of is inspired from your experience working with Cassie and both going through her book, because her Manifest 10K book is like the foundation of what she does, as well as being part of this new coaching program that she's offering. Am I gauging this right?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
So there's, you go to Change Your Money Story, and it's like a mini workshop, and you learn what your money story is. We all have a money story, whether we recognize it or not in the very beginning. And I was a money chaser. I chased money for most of my 43 years of life. I'm 46 now, but up until I started working with Cassie and changing that story, I've been a money chaser.
Now, it's been a few weeks since Cassie was on. I know she went over this with everybody on the show here. Let's do a little review. What are the different categories of people where money is concerned?
So you have a money chaser, you have survival, you have hot mess.
I love that title, by the way, the hot mess.
Yeah, the hot mess. You have just enough. And then there's one other one that I'm not the most familiar with. It's kind of, you can be a combination of some of those two.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And in your experience, where do most people fall?
That's an interesting question because I thought that I fell in several different categories.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you can see yourself in multiple different money stories. Yet being a money chaser, that's all I ever really focused on. Like I could see where other people could have like not enough or just enough. My parents were that way. So I went the complete opposite of my parents' money story.
Okay. Well, hey, self-knowledge is like the most important piece of this anyway, because the more that we can know about ourselves, the better we're going to be able to overcome the blocks and resistances and all the little wonderful things we put in the way of our own progress. Because that's part of the fun of being alive in this world of contrast and polarity. I'm kind of in my mind, contrasting what she's saying and comparing it to your own experience, because you went through, I don't know exactly which category you fall into originally, I should say, but you went through like a dramatic, life-changing shockwave. And I can only imagine what that was like when you went through it.
Which shockwave exactly are you talking about?
Well, when you first got when you were on the SWAT team and all that, he used to work for the Camden, New Jersey Police Department, and he had a friend who give her like the quick overview of that story, just so she knows what's going on there.
Oh man, long story medium. My ex-partner was a retired CIA agent. Told me about a movie that they make everybody watch in the academy. Ended up being The Secret. I got obsessed. Started to learn how to meditate and just learn as much as I could by studying other people who were using it. And that's all I did, man. It was like 60 hours a week I was doing this. And less than a year later, I ended up retiring. And ever since then, I've just been, coaching and showing and teaching people all that I can, all that I know about it. And, so it was a culture shock, coming from the hood and then being a cop in that hood. I've had several different culture shocks in that respect, but transitioning from the old me, the old way of thinking to this one, it's one of those things where you say, I'll never go back, but it's a totally different life. It was just a totally different life. Learning that thoughts had a purpose. They had I never even gave thoughts a second thought, so to speak.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So when I did, it was that was the biggest shock of my life, probably. Finding out that I was not only slightly in control, but in total control of the outcomes. At the time, I didn't know you had to surrender the middleman, everything that leads up to it, all the events you try to predict. I'm going to meet this person and talk to that person, and that phone call is going to happen. You're always wrong about the middleman, but the end result, keying in on that, it was just a dramatic change from nothing to something, basically.
And you became truly a master, I would have to say.
I think so. I got my black belt on.
Dio also has this wonderful thing that he started very early on. He started wearing, like you see right there, T-shirts that say "Thoughts Become Things," and he wears them everywhere. Every little shirt, and it becomes the basis for all of his connections of what he does. It's really cool. I love that. It's like, street marketing.
You just made me think, because it is great marketing. I mean, I'm a walking billboard, and I love that. You would have to pay for this otherwise, but you just made me think, and I'm surprised it never dawned on me before. I'm weeding out the people I kind of don't want to talk to, you know? As when it comes to meeting strangers, I can't walk down the street without saying something about someone saying something about my shirt. And it's the people who say something about it. Those are the ones I wanted to meet ultimately anyway. So yeah, I didn't even realize it was working like that. But yes, I love having this shirt on. I don't have to pick outfits. It's sweet. I got a black one, a white one. It's great.
Awesome.
And then I ended up giving them out. I was at that dental festival, and it was an all white event. Everybody was wearing all white. And this guy wore my shirt. He had my shirt, but in black.
Oh,
and he was like, "I don't care. I'm wearing it the way I want to wear it. I'm representing." And I was like, "Cool." And so the next night or 2 days later, it was a black tie event where everybody had on all black. Well, this lady came in wearing a white shirt. She said, "I don't care. I'm representing." I was like, "Wow." I didn't think I was affecting people like that. I mean, it wasn't a big thing. It wasn't a rule you had to wear white or black, but you got one night at this festival to wear what you want, make your impression on all these people that you only see twice a year, these professionals that you look up to from around the globe, because they really did come from around the globe. And they chose to wear my shirt, and that was just flattering. I mean, that's what's up. I like that.
That's a big deal. Seriously, that's a really big deal. And I know it is, because I know what it's like to get the feedback here on the show from listeners. So when you're getting that feedback on the street, live, in person, people insisting on wearing your T-shirt, even when it's not appropriate for the dress code.
Oh, that tie that I had on a tuxedo, I wasn't even wearing one of my shirts.
Those people are my people. They're rebels.
I love it.
Yeah, talk about where that title comes from. I love the use of the word rebels.
Well, for me, a rebel was I wanted to do things my way, my own way. And I wanted to be different from everybody else. So, yeah, I would be the one who would show up at a all black tie event and wear the white T-shirt.
Oh, it was you. You were the one who was there. Oh, of course. I should have realized.
I had my name all over it.
I've always stood against having to wear matching socks. And growing up in my time, you couldn't do something like that. But I would take it as far as I would have the black Air Force One shoes and the white Air Force One shoes. And I would wear one of each. I was that guy that wore two different shoes. They were the same brand, same make, model, everything, just two different colors. Right. I wasn't wearing like a sneaker and a dress shoe or a cowboy boot. But I was always that dude that did that. And I'm so proud, because so many people tried to pull me off of that. They tried to put me back into the box that they thought I was in, because their, I guess, parents held them in that box. And though my dad might have looked at me crazy for wearing two different shoes, he never told me not to.
That's cool.
Never, so it has a lot to do with how you're raised and what you do with how you're raised.
Yeah, that's true. You need both factors going on there. I mean, Kim, are you Kim or Kimberly? I didn't even ask that ahead of time.
I go by Kimberly.
Kimberly. Okay.
I'm a grown up now.
Okay, yeah. So Kimberly, when you were growing up, but also when you were also in this period of learning and of adapting and taking on what Cassie teaches and so forth, were you in any way influenced by other people when it came to choosing that word rebel? In other words, how did people respond to you using that word rebel, or did they not even hear about it because you just kind of kept it to yourself at first?
Well, if someone told me that I had to do something a certain way, I was like, okay, let me show you, and I'm going to do it my way. So I was even kind of tagged, in high school as being a little bit of a rebel. I was doing things that nobody else was doing. And I thought about things a lot differently when I was younger. As a matter of fact, I didn't really feel like I fit in anywhere. So, and Neo was talking about being in a box, and I never wanted to be in the box. So again, that rebel of, if you're putting me in a box, I'm going to break out of it. Like I just didn't want to be there at all.
So thinking outside the box was never really a challenge for you then?
No,
No,
not at all.
That was the easy part. The hard part was thinking inside the box.
Yeah, I got in a lot of trouble of not being able to sit in that box, so to speak.
Yeah, but you learned a lot, I'll bet.
Oh, I sure did.
Yeah. What are some of the advantages you think from being that rebel, being outside the box as a way of living?
Well, I think for me, it's I'm more open to see what other people are doing. Like, I really think it helped me be less judgmental, and be curious. Like, I would be curious about what somebody else was doing. Like, I was always wanting to learn something new and gain more knowledge. And I think being a rebel, I didn't want to do it the way everybody else was doing it. So I was looking for the people who were doing it differently and how maybe I could add to that.
That's a good thing.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Is being a rebel, Kimberly, in your opinion, is being a rebel, because Walt just said something that hit me in my face. Is being a rebel the equivalent to finding it harder to stay in the box than it is to think outside the box?
Oh, that's a good one.
Because Walt said that it's harder to stay inside the box. And I said, yeah, that's how I grew up. And I have a feeling we all did too.
Yeah. It is very hard to be in that box or stay in it. Yeah, most definitely.
I think another way that I would label that box is it's what many people call the comfort zone.
Oh, yeah. the non-effort box.
The non-effort box, yes.
Just let your thoughts come and just let it happen. You know?
Although I call it the familiar zone just because for many people it's what's familiar. But it could go either way, I suppose. But that comfort zone, man, that just eats people up without realizing it. And I think you guys are right. I think that people who tend to pay attention to things like law of attraction, who tend to want to make some changes in their lives and who are willing to take steps to make those changes and so forth, they're people who already think outside the box. Because the box says don't do that.
Yeah.
The box says to conform. The box says, here's the way to think. This is the way all the people in the group should think. What's wrong with you for thinking outside? So
you know what else the comfort zone consumes? Time.
Oh God, yes.
I mean, every day I think to myself at least once. I try not to, but I just think to myself at least once. Like, man, what if I'd have known about the law of attraction when I was 10?
Oh, don't even go there. That drives me nuts. I think about the same thing. It's crazy.
And then I pull out of it. I'm like, no, everything happens for a reason. Then I walk myself down this. But then it's still there, though. It's still there. Oh, man. But you use that emphasis and you use that to drive you to do as many mental exercises for the rest of today as I can remember to do, as opposed to just waking up tomorrow like, man, I just really watched TV last night and didn't do any affirmations, you know. You get out of things what you put into it, 100%.
It's true. It's true. I get excited by what's happening with a lot more kids today. I mean, I'm not saying across the board, but there is a significantly larger chunk of the young people population that is being exposed to this kind of thing. And that excites me. That makes me feel like there's real hope. And that it gives me a level of hope that I didn't even have before, to be perfectly honest. So I don't know. Maybe that's just the way I'm seeing it, but I'm just enthused by it. So when I get myself in that place of thinking, well, why didn't I have this explained to me when I was a kid? Then I remind myself, yeah, but kids today are getting it. Yeah. The
only form of payment I currently accept is that feeling right there. You know, I need that. That's what I thrive for, because obviously the children are our future, like Whitney Houston said.
Right.
And they're the ones that are more open-minded too than the older of us that are kind of set in our ways. Those two factors right there are like, so when that group gets it as a whole, that's how I know I'm doing my job. That's the payment right there. That's how I know. And that's what pushes me. Just like a dollar bill would push somebody to go for that promotion. That's what's pushing me every day. Because shit, I'm sorry for my language. I'm retired. I really don't have to do none of this. I could just sit around and play video games all day. But no, this is it, man. That's love for me. That's life. That feeling. I need that.
Can I insert something, Walt?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I think actually that, you're onto something. I think we actually did know the law of attraction when we were kids.
Really? Okay. Explain.
I think kids are so connected They just know things when they're younger. I think it's when they start to go to school that they conform to what is, I'll put in quotes, normal.
Fair point. Yeah.
So we have all taken this journey to get back to what we already knew, I think, when we were younger. And now we as adults, we do get to help kids because we're the examples of what LOA is. And my boys are a prime example of that. I went for a period of time where I thought I had screwed up royally because I had this money story and I had passed it on down to my kids.
Mm.
Well, now that I've changed my money story, I get to lead by example. They get to see me having a new money story, and they get to choose a new story for themselves.
And they get to experience it too. There's a lot to be said for that experience. I mean, it's one thing to know something theoretically, although kids are really good. You explain the theory to the kids and they just run with it because they don't have those resistance points that the older folks have.
Yeah.
But even with those resistance points, once you have that feeling through experience, I don't know if there's anything that really replaces that, is there?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. It's like that's about as strong as it gets. Now, of course, the real challenge, and this is really what all the gurus, the teachers have been trying to explain to us, is it's in your imagination. So regardless of whether you've experienced it, if you can imagine it, it still happens. To me, that's always been one of the more challenging parts of the whole thing. Because, yes, we do need to learn to apply our imagination, particularly in those areas where we haven't perhaps experienced it before or experienced anything like it. And it's kind of stretching the imagination, stretching our ability to imagine and to feel and to put ourselves in that place. And those are great skills to have. So that's, I guess, part of the reason we come into this world, to this high polarity, high contrast world where we lose track and we lose our connection for a bit and then we rediscover it. But by the same token, man, it's so great when you gain that feeling back. And when you can do it through your imagination, it's even more powerful that way.
I want to hit you guys with something. I was doing a show earlier with Kristen Becker, and we were talking about kids. And she said that she would play, like driving in a car, she would say, you got $1,000. What are you going to spend it on? And have the kids go through it. And it really dawned on me, it hit me when she said that, like, this is something that shapes the way they think in the future. Most people won't run that scenario because, for one, they feel bad. It's not happening. It's not real. The situation is opposite right now. It just makes them feel worse. So they refuse to run scenarios like that. But doing this with kids is like showing them it's okay to do it. And so when they get older, they'll be able to run scenarios better than our generation. Another thing that you said earlier that I wanted to key on, I wrote down, the next generation is going to learn the law of attraction. Our children, let's say, are going to learn the law of attraction in a better format than we did. Mm. We got it from The Secret, where it was like, all right, all this greatness, but why is this still happening? And we were trying to figure out, whereas our kids see us using it for both the good and for the bad. So they see that there's a balance. They won't, like, we went into it. I thought I was going to be president of Superman. I thought I would never trip, stumble, stub my toe again. And so they'll be able to see that there's both sides and equate it to what they're going through in school, both sides, good things and bad things. So it's very, in several different ways, the future is very bright as far as our kids and what they should be bringing to the next platform. Big time.
And Kimberly gets to see that every day with her own kids. I mean, you don't even have to do it theoretically.
Yeah. I've got 3 boys. My oldest is stationed in Alaska in the Army, and he's 21. And we just had an amazing conversation about being present. He said that when he steps into the future and he's worrying about it, his life is chaotic. And if he goes in the past thinking about how he screwed up and how he didn't do something right, he doesn't feel very good about himself. But when he steps into being present with where he is in that moment, he's really happy. And to hear my 21-year-old son tell me that, that's amazing.
Especially at 21, that's very cool, because that's not always an easy age.
He just manifested a 2014 Jeep Wrangler. He's doing so good, and he's happy.
Good for him.
What's his name?
His name's Noah.
Noah.
Please tell Noah we said thank you for his service.
I will. And thank you for yours.
Thank you. What does your younger son do?
My middle one, Zach, he just got a new job in construction.
Good for him. Congratulations.
He's just turned 19, and he's a hard worker, and he's learning too that he would always sit on his money and not really reward himself for his hard work. So we've had some conversations about that. Well, he went out and he spent $2,500 and got himself a new quad.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah. And then my youngest one is 16, and he's an interesting one. I feel like he's an old soul. We've said for years there's an old man trapped in his body because we've always thought he was so serious. But he doesn't seem to worry about money. Like it's not an issue for him, which is just so different from watching the other two grow up. All three of them came from obviously my husband and I, and yet they all have different personalities and different views on how money works.
And of course, money doesn't have to be the only blocking point for people. I mean, the top three are probably money, relationships, and health. And there's going to be a different thing, different combination for everybody. So yeah, it's not terribly surprising. But how interesting that it got to the third one. The third one basically was done with going through what the stuff that the first two went through they were still going through. He didn't have to do it. It's like, okay, my older brothers did it. I'm done. No problem.
Yeah. He's making money, and he's got a happy relationship at 16, and he actually is they're all pretty happy-go-lucky kids. So
that's really great. That's how you know that things are not only going right in their lives, but you've had the right influence.
Yes.
That feels great.
It does. It feels really good.
Happy kids. They say happy spouse, happy house. We got to make one up for happy kids because that's a different type of feeling. Henry just had his first child, baby girl. And it was funny because I always tell him I was told him before, you don't know what real love is. I always tell him, you guys don't know what real love is. Oh, I love my girl. Nah, this is something different. And after all of them have a kid, they come back and they're like, you were right. Like, I didn't know what this was. I didn't know this feeling could even exist on this level. And it's that carries over into that whole seeing your kids laugh, seeing them happy. It's something worth doing a law of attraction for, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I had something else in here, too, about your kids. And this applies to anybody, but working with Cassie, I learned how to stay in my own lane. As a parent, you don't want your child to go through hurt or experience pain, like the negative side of things. And what I learned by staying in my own lane was to hold space for them, to allow them to feel their feelings if they're angry or sad. And it's made a huge difference in how my boys communicate with me. Like, we're just so open, and they are so much happier now because they do experience the feelings. Like, they actually feel how they feel, and I don't try to fix it for them anymore.
Which is a very good thing. It's a challenging idea, though, because on the one hand, we do want people to live, including kids, including our kids, we want them to live all of life. And yes, the parent wants them to have the happy life. But by the same token, we came into this world knowing that it was a world of contrast. So it's an interesting balance that happens there, don't you think?
It is, but it feels really good doing it this new way.
That's true. It's all over your face. So that's very clearly true for you. No doubt about that.
For years, just real quick, for years growing up, I didn't want to have kids because I didn't want to be responsible for bringing anyone else into this hot mess that we're living in. And I remember, I was born in 81, so I was saying this during the 90s, when all kind of craziness was going on, and where I was from, Camden, New Jersey. So I always had said that. But obviously I got over that after I had my first baby girl. But
I also want to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say having that thought, it's sad that anyone would have that thought about the current state of the world. That was back then. And so that's the emphasis on why we have shows like this, to make change.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge a couple of people who are in the live stream. Most of our listeners are podcast listeners, so they listen to the recording. But especially wanted to say hello to JB because you've been putting some stuff in there, including recognition that, yes, it's a parable and that parenting is at the center of that parable, no doubt about it. So thanks for dropping by. Appreciate it. But yeah, the whole thing about what's happening with kids and how kids are growing up and what happens when they grow up with law of attraction teaching is quite astonishing. There have been a lot of stories told here on the show. I want to share one of them with you, Kimberly. This one was told quite a few years ago by one of my very first co-hosts. Now, currently I do the show 5 days a week with people like Neo. I've got generally 2 co-hosts each day, Monday through Friday. Back then I was doing it once a week. And I had one co-host. His name was Joel Elston. And still a good friend. He just became too busy to do the show anymore. But he told this amazing story. I'll never forget this. And we renamed his client to Stephen. It wasn't his real name. But is that what we did? No, it was a different name. I think it was that. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, he was telling the story about this kid who had come through the foster care system. Now, Joel actually gets a lot of people who come through the foster care system. And he does so primarily because he was originally a therapist, a psychotherapist. He eventually kind of left that behind and became a full-time life coach. And that's pretty much what he's doing today. But whenever other therapists would encounter kids in the foster care system who were the real troublemakers, the ones that nobody could reach, Joel was like, the therapist of last resort. So he got all the tough cases that way. And he had win after win after win with him. So they just kept sending the tough cases to him. But there was this one kid that he met. This kid talk about a hot mess. This kid was just a wreck at age like 9, something like that. He had been prescribed to like 20 different drugs. I mean, that may be an exaggeration, but he was on so many drugs. When Joel met him and sat down with him and asked him to tell him about himself, the kid said, well, I'm opposition defiant. I have ADHD. No, I want to know who you are. He was giving all of his diagnoses. That was his life. His entire life was all the things he'd been diagnosed with. He was trouble in any foster home he was placed in. Joel described him when he shook hands with the kid, it was the limpest handshake he'd ever encountered in his life. And the kid was just full of anger. He was full of rage, really, not just anger. He was just a raging kid who was just looking to lash out any chance that he got. And of course, the way that Joel broke through is because Joel had his own really tough situation growing up, including being thrown in prison at one point. And so when the kid, challenged him with, well, how would you know how this feels? Joel says, well, here's how I know. And it would tell the story like, oh, okay. So he'd make the encounter of trust that way. But the bottom line is he ended up in that first session explaining the law of attraction to the kid and explaining that we are in control of what happens in every aspect of our lives. And the kid got it instantly. And from that first session on, he immediately decided to change his life and did so that day. It was amazing how fast it happened. Well, the first thing he did before he left the office with Joel was to ask him if Joel would go with him to meet his psychiatrist. And Joel said, sure, I'll do that. And then the kid went home. He went to the foster home where he'd been staying. The foster home mother called Joel later and said, what did you do to this kid? He's a different kid. And to make a very long and wonderful story short, this kid literally changed everything about his life. He and Joel went to see his psychiatrist. This kid did all his research and started hitting the psychiatrist with all these questions about, well, when you prescribed this one for me, did you also check to see what the data said about how this one interacts with that drug over there? And he's like hitting, and the psychiatrist is looking at Joel and said, what'd you do? What'd you do? You had to like ruin my day bringing this kid in this state, right? No, the kid fired his psychiatrist. A 9-year-old kid fired his psychiatrist. And he went on to make all kinds of changes in his life. He went to his teacher and apologized for the behavior that he'd been giving over the last, couple of years or whatever. It was like, and he apologized to the foster mother. He completely changed his life around. Today, this is like, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years later. I believe he's about ready. It's got to be more than that. It's got to be closer to 7 or 8 years. He's about ready to graduate from high school. He's going to college at a Southern college. I don't remember which one. And he's going for psychiatry. I mean, oh my God. Now that's a very dramatic version of a story, but it illustrates just how quickly kids can get it.
Yes.
And it's just that to me is where the excitement comes from. Because I've worked with kids not on LOA but in other contexts. I love watching how fast kids can pick stuff up.
Yeah, they don't have all the distractions we got.
That's right.
Go ahead, Nina. Sorry.
No, I was just saying they don't have all the distractions we got. You know, they got their own, but they don't have the ones like us. Specifically, finances and the stuff that lingers every day. You know, car notes and stuff like that.
What were you going to say, Kimberly?
Yeah. When my boys were younger, I actually went into their schools and the daycare, and I taught meditation. Ooh. And I actually ended up writing 2 children's meditation books. And it was really interesting because my middle son, his classroom was so disruptive. Mm-hmm. And by the end of doing several different meditation sessions, once a week, the teacher actually told me that she was going to incorporate it the next year because for 30 minutes, that classroom would be quiet and still, and she hadn't seen that all year long.
Wow.
And many of the kids would tell me that they actually thanked me because they had a place that they could go to let all the BS go. They didn't say BS, of course, but
right.
To let their worries go. Because it's, I took them to their secret garden and they had a mailbox where they could drop off their worries and all the things.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, they do pick up those things if we teach them when they're younger or show them.
Yeah.
And stay consistent.
Yes.
You gotta stay consistent with it. The most successful people I know, they make their kids meditate every day before school and after school. So I'm a fan. Kimberly, we gotta talk after this because we could probably exchange some ideas.
I'd love to.
Trying to instill the law of attraction into my 3-year-old, and trying to instill it into someone who doesn't know what a thought is different because you have to do it with your actions. So you have to find a way to teach the law of attraction with your actions. So it's become a challenge, but it's one of those inviting challenges that I love participating in every time he enters the room. And so I picked up a lot of techniques, but I know I could probably get some more from you. So we got to get together after this, chop it up.
Let's not wait. I mean, because like you said, you wrote a couple books. Share some nuggets from the books.
Bring it.
Uh-oh, did the image freeze up?
She's not moving.
Oh, no.
That or she's pulling a joke on us.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
If you see the cat jump up on the counter.
She's going to reconnect. All right. So while she's reconnecting, we'll just wait for it. But what you say is really true. It's a challenge for kids. Or I'm sorry, for parents who are trying to teach kids. How do you teach it? It's not like you had a whole lot of role models growing up, right? That told you here's how you can teach this stuff to your kids.
Nah, this is off the fly. Just like all my live streams, I just come up with it as I go. But it's just how you respond to the things that he does and how you preemptively, I guess, respond to something. It's all about your actions because these kids are picking up way more than we think they're picking up anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So if he's picking up imagery anyway, I might as well shape it the best I can. There we go.
So sorry, my internet kicked me off.
Well, that's right. We got you back. That's the main thing.
We're trying to get some information from your books. We want your number 1 parenting technique, your number 2 and 3 as well, please.
Yeah, give us some nuggets from your books about how to help kids really grasp and understand this from an early age.
Well, the book I just wrote or my children's meditation books?
Let's start with the meditation books.
Okay. So I'm actually working on redoing all the artwork for those.
Okay.
But the children's meditation books, it starts with taking them to a secret garden. And before they get there, they stop at a mailbox and they open it up and there's a pen and paper. And they write down any worries that they might have or anything that makes them sad or something that happened that they're not happy about. And then they put it in the mailbox and it'll just be taken care of for them. And then they enter their secret garden and they go on adventures. I've got more to write. They're already actually written. I just want to do the artwork myself.
That's cool.
I need to triple myself,
I know that feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first one is I Am Loved, and it goes through, and there's animals, and the animals, talk to them saying how much they love them, and then they get to choose who do they want to see in their secret garden. And I have this amazing story of a young boy who had lost his grandpa, and we had done this meditation, and he asked his grandpa to come visit him that day in his secret garden. And he said thank you, because now he had a place he could go and chat with his grandpa whenever he wanted to. So, and of course, there's the breathing exercises, and we talk a little bit about colors, because, colors, breathing in colors, blue is calming. So that's very helpful for them. And then they just stay there and wander around and kind of go on their own little adventure as far as whatever they want to do. And then you bring them back to exit the secret garden. And if there's still anything that they didn't let go of yet, they can open their mailbox again and write it down and put it in there. So they're basically just letting go of, well, us adults, I would think, sometimes have more stresses and things, but kids carry stuff too. So they're able to write it down and let it go in a more simple way.
Yeah, that's
what my meditation books are all about for kids. And I did that for 3-year-olds. They didn't sit for 30 minutes. We started with 15. And then the rest were 30 minutes. So, and my oldest son was in third or fourth grade at that time.
So there you go, Neil. That you asked how to help your 3-year-old. You just got a direct 3-year-old answer.
She said 3-year-olds, and I'm in awe, because if I tried to walk him through he doesn't know what a garden is. He didn't know what a secret is either. So I think it would be hard for my dialogue with him.
What's he into?
He's dinosaurs.
Okay, so take him to the land of dinosaurs. Take him to something that he can visualize. Take him to a garden with dinosaurs.
I think where I'm losing it, where I'm seeing it in my mind is, I guess a lot of the word, he's not formulating sentences yet. So for me to say a full sentence to him, half of the words in there, and the, if, like, I got some words like that, he probably wouldn't even know. So I'm like, how would I paint a picture?
Does he know colors?
In his mind. He knows colors. Yeah, he knows colors.
Start him with breathing with colors.
Breathing, so just tell him to breathe, and think of
a blue dinosaur.
Okay.
Bring it down to his level.
Okay, so as long as I'm slowing it down.
Yeah, so he's going to picture a blue dinosaur, and then he's going to breathe that color in.
Nice. All right, I bang with it. There was somebody, Kristen was telling me about a color that's like a shade of blue that's supposed to be real good, not lavender. It's kind of the word that starts with L. Not a crystal, a color that's supposed to be.
I was going to say lapis lazuli.
That's a good one.
Something like that, but it's kind of like blue. But yeah, I have to find out what it's called. But okay, I could do that. I could definitely do that.
By the way, Debbie G has connected in via the chat. Apparently she's traveling about, so that's why she hasn't been able to join us on the show. But she's loving it. She's loving the tools for children. She's loving watching. She loves Dinosaur Land. So
I'm anxious. I'm gonna grab him up. Yo, sit down with me for a second. All right, think of a yellow dinosaur. Get him to sit his butt down a little bit.
Well, and he actually probably understands more than you realize, even though he's not able to verbalize yet.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
And just trust that he knows.
He's
smart.
I think the energy transfer speaks more than words to kids from birth up until they, learn how to speak full-on English or whatever language. So, plus a little bit of law of attraction, a little bit of confidence, a little bit my point's getting across. I know it's getting across. I appreciate that it's getting across. That type of stuff. Mix it all up. Use every tool in your tool belt, you guys. Every tool you got, use it.
JB throws an interesting comment up. He says, I use similar techniques when I work with patients with Alzheimer's. We always have to make whatever point we're trying to get across to where that person is. That's a great point. Something else too about kids, because we were talking earlier, Kimberly, about how kids are very much connected still. They have, for the most part, until they get into the school system, they really have a strong connection intuitively all day long. I mean, they just know that it's there. And then over time, we were taught to let go of it and disconnect from it in a sense. But I think that's kind of another way to tap in, because when we are, it's not like we have to worry about whether or not they're understanding. They already get it, like you're saying. They're already connected. They already have that sense of feeling, right? So it's not like you have to teach them something they don't already know. You just have to tell them, pay attention to it.
Yeah. And if you, like, again, going back to the 3-year-olds, the class that I was in, the teachers were amazed because they said it was like trying to herd kittens. But they would sit, and the starting with the breathing part of it all really is what relaxed them and made it much easier to enter the secret garden. And the things that they would share when they were done was just, their imagination is just amazing.
Yes, that's a really key point right there. We were talking a moment ago about how important it is to learn how to imagine that which we have never experienced before. Kids are probably our best model for that.
They are.
In fact, we have a lot to learn from them, to be perfectly honest.
Yep. I highly recommend spending time with 3-year-olds, like a big
doubt.
group.
Yeah, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, all of them. I mean, they have so much to teach us. It's amazing. There's Debbie G.
I had to pop in here. Well, first off, I'm in the middle of a project and stuff, and I never like to miss. Kimberly, it's a joy listening to you, and it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
What I want to hop in with is that I'm loving the tools that you're bringing forward for children. And here's why. Because emotional intelligence is now being taught. They've been doing this through the Yale University, and all of the things that you're doing, meditation, teaching children to start self-sourcing, self-nurturing, is all now a really big thing. And in fact, Kimberly, I want to introduce you to the Krikori app and the ladies that do that, so that you can get your work over into there, so that it can be accessible to already a field of children. And they're using it in the classrooms. But I just really am appreciating you, because if anybody has ever heard of the 100th monkey, has anybody?
I've heard of it, don't know it.
So the 100th monkey is, in essence, the story of the scientists that did the study in Hiroshima on the monkeys.
Okay.
And they brought yams, and then the babies were washing their yams. They didn't like them with the sand and everything on them. Okay. But the adults and everybody else are doing it the same way. So after years of study, they find that from the children, from the smallest child up, is where how the learning process went. But the most unique part of the entire thing is they were doing these studies on other islands around the world. And what they found most interesting is that they call it the 100th monkey effect, because at the 100th monkey, everybody was doing this, and they couldn't explain how that exactly happened, that it became the social norm. Okay. So Kimberly, what you're doing is you're bringing in work now for all of us for these children, for Neo's little one, for my granddaughter, to be able to start at an age where they can begin learning these really valuable tools. So, really cool stuff.
Thank you.
As I pop in here and take over. Sorry, guys.
No, I love it. That was great. We were actually missing you. I'd already pre-sold Kimberly on your high energy level, and then you weren't there. It's like, oh, geez, I feel like I cheated her or something.
I really did. Yeah, no, sorry about that. But yeah, Kimberly, just rocking. What's up, Neil?
I said classic Debbie G coming in with that explosion. And you know what's crazy? Right when you were coming in, I was going to say that recently, what I've really, really learned upon studying a bunch of people that were really successful with the law of attraction, one thing I wasn't using that they was emotion. Like, I was attaching emotion to my affirmations, but these people are getting into it and producing in a month 7 figures. And they didn't even know exactly all what they were doing, but I identified it, and I said, emotion. You're adding some very strong emotions to your make-believe sessions that you're having, that you're choosing to break away from your normal day and spend a half an hour in make-believe, which I know a lot of people would say, what the hell? Trust me, it's worth it. But if you're going to do that couple it with as much emotion as you can. See yourself there. See yourself happy there, as happy as you would be. Try your hardest. The ego's going to kick your back in the whole way through, but trust me, it's worth it. I was great to talk about that right when you came in with a big splash of energy. So
Well,
boom,
I'd love to add to that, Neo. You talk about
Awesome.
emotions. So working with Cassie and in Future Self University, we activate our abundance feeling. Like we activate our emotions. We tap into that. And so it is very important when you're really wanting to use the LOA or manifesting, connecting to how it's going to feel when you have what you want. That's really important.
Well, real quick, I'm gonna give this question to everybody, and grab the answer for myself and who else is wondering. Sometimes when it's hard to, like, I'll have an hour where nothing's popping, nothing's happening. I can play as much make believe as I want, but no matter how much I try, I can't enjoy it as much. Anything like money related, like having such and such. How would it feel to have this amount of money and buy the tour bus that I want? And I'm like, oh yeah, I put myself in the tour bus. I'm feeling good. I'm looking good. Yeah, this is exactly what I pictured, exactly what I wanted, but the emotion is kind of lacking. And sometimes it be like that for long periods. It's like for like the whole hour, I'm like, man, I could have done something. I could have played video games instead of, wasting my time. Well, not wasting my time. But so anyway, when you got somebody in that situation, what do you suggest?
Let's go to our guest first. Kimberly, how do you help somebody with that particular thing, with the emotion piece?
So you're not inspired in that moment. So set it down and wait for inspiration. You can't force the feeling. You have to allow the feeling.
What if you proactively look or have something set aside just for that moment to inspire you, and then try to hop into the scenario with that newfound spark that you gave yourself? You think it's doing something like that would work?
Yeah. So like when I'm, I'll go back to the abundance activators. Sometimes it's just 2 minutes that I'm spending. I think people get tripped up in, I have to spend this full hour doing this thing, when sometimes you may only have 2 minutes, but just going to activate it. So how do you activate that feeling? You come up with a list of things let's go with happy. How do you activate feeling happy? Well, I can put on a child giggling and that makes me happy. And I can listen to that for 2 minutes. And then I set down the judgment of, okay, I didn't spend an hour on this. That's okay. I still activated my feeling. Is that what you're talking about, Neo?
I tapped the mouse and it flew 2 screens over. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I love it. I love the lists aspect. And I noticed this yesterday. There's 2 things that make me smile. There's this one rhyme that I wrote, and listing things, whether it be what I'm grateful for or thankful for, or just reasons to say yes in my life, or listing the things that I would purchase. Oh my goodness. New mental exercise. I just thought of it last night. You guys tell me what you think. Here's the deal. You find your net worth. How much cash could you hand somebody right now? Total. If someone was like everything right now. All right, so let's say that number's $10,000. So what you do is you ask yourself, what would I do if I was given $10,000? I have to spend it today. Like that movie with Richard Pryor. I gotta spend it today. Whatever's not getting spent today is going in the trash. And so, because the first time I did it, it was, what would I do if I spent my $10,000? But that didn't work. Because as I chiseled away at the price, my ego was like, oh no, you're running low. So I was like, this way, your $10,000 is set. It's not moving. You were just given another one. And it's easy to feel like you have $10,000 because you already have it in cash. So that's why I said work with the number that you have. And then you start listing what you would spend it on. And then every now and then you ask, how would it feel? Oh yeah, I would go get this. Or how would that feel? And I was using this last night and I was working it out. And you guys know when I go over different mental exercises, if it feels good and it's working on all different areas, I'm like, yeah, I want to do a video about that. So I just thought about it last night and it attacks so many different angles. But based off of what I said, give me some feedback. What you guys got?
Have you read Manifest 10,000 by Cassie?
That's Cassie's book, Cassie Parks, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we do. We're handed that's one of our exercises. We're handed $10,000.
No,
what
but
would we buy with it?
My thing is this. If it's a person that only has, net $1,000 in their bank, the ego's going to be kicking their back in every time they say 10,000. That's why I was trying to work with something where the ego would have to agree. Yeah, you do have that. So for you, you know what I'm saying? It's like me saying,
I just gotta come in. I love you. I'll just we're about to spark that G vibe real quick. So look, here it is. Listen, we could spend all year long looking at future tripping about what it might feel like to have something. And I love all that because I've done that and it works and that's great. But if your self-worth and your self-love is not in check where it needs to be, there's a good possibility that you may not be seeing what you want to come up because somewhere in that subconscious is some belief that you don't deserve it. The only time that we see things that when we don't see what we think that we should be seeing, there's something, we're not doing it wrong. We're not loving ourselves right. So when we love ourselves right, and that looks like loving all these aspects of us. They're all juicy. They're all really good. Loving the polarity, loving every ounce of it. And then the bubble, and Kimberly and Neo and Walt, y'all know what the bubble is. It's the bubble of let go. Let go. You have that image. You know what it looks like. You know that attachment to the outcome of what you want it to look like versus what it could be. Could you imagine the 10,000 being 10 million, but you're limiting yourself to the limit, to the possibility of the greatness. And sometimes we play small because we're afraid if we play big, it's not going to happen. Or we need that constant confirmation. Well, I'm going to do this, get this, it's going to happen. Okay, what I'm doing is working. Well, if it's working for $5, it's going to work on 5 million. It's just how it is. It's a matter of your self-worth inside of here and what that you feel about you. And I've not found anything else until I started accepting me. And I mean, even the crap that I just don't like, it was a trip. So that's my input on that. I think the law of attraction on steroids is the law of appreciation and the law of appreciating yourself first, foremost, and then, because dude, like if you get happy right where the hell you're at with everything you've got, you're going to have shit show up. You're going to be like, damn, where'd that come from? Damn, where'd that come from? Damn. Oh my God. Are you kidding me right now?
Yes.
Like that. It's just, but you got to be loving you wherever you're at. And I mean like hugging, loving, look at you. Look where you've been. Look where you are. How can you not freaking love that shit?
You can see, Kimberly, why we love Debbie G so much.
And that's an alignment. This is perfect, Debbie, because the book that I wrote in 3 days, Rebel's Guide to More Money, as a money chaser, I was so busy being a money chaser that I didn't have to stop and even look at my self-worth. And I really didn't feel worthy of being abundant.
Yeah.
Which is such, BS. Sorry, I almost threw it out there.
Hey, the line's been crossed a few times so far, so you can relax. It's okay.
So, yeah, but self-worth is a part of that. But being a money chaser, I didn't have time to even think or worry about it.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I love that because you're chasing, and it's running and and you're never going to catch it, but you're also not present here.
Anything you chase will run from you. That's the bad part. Anything you chase will run from you, but a goal in itself is a chase. It's a feeling of lack. There's something I want and something has to happen in order for it to happen. I want a glass of water. Well, I first got to swallow the damn thing. You're either going to succeed or fail, but in that moment when you order it, it is a chase. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword that you got to like dance with. like
But baby, you're creating the walls. That's the thing. You're doing it. Like you are creating your dance and your walls, man. Nobody else is doing it. And every one of us show up to give us each little clues, not cues, clues.
Absolutely
clues. True. You know, I mean, I'm taking something from all of you right now. I want to hug Kimberly just because any work anyone's doing with children makes my heart go poof. I want to hug all. Yeah. Thank you for showing up here today. You rock. Seriously. And Neo, the way you show up, just authentically being yourself and just straight up out there. Hey, look, I've been doing this thing. And what if this happens? And you know,
that's one of my answers is to ask y'all.
Dude, you're smart because that's what I did for a bunch of years while I interviewed a bunch of people until I got all their clues. Give them. And here we got Walt just leading the pack here off in space somewhere. You know, I am the Walt. And he's just, but Walt, take it, bring us in for that sweet close, man.
Oh, well, it is sweet, but it's also bittersweet because this is the hardest part is finishing up an hour and you don't want to stop because it's going so great. But Kimberly, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. You got to let people know how they find you and how they're going to find this book once it's out.
Yes. So you can find me at morekimberly.com. That's MoreKimberly.com. So thank you so much, Walt, for having me. It was a pleasure meeting you, Debbie and Neo, and this has been a lot of fun.
And it's going to be hitting, I presume, Amazon and others, Barnes & Noble and small bookstores, I would imagine, as well, in the first quarter of next year, right?
First quarter of 2022. The date's not inspired yet.
We haven't set the date yet. Okay, but it's going to be called Rebel's Guide to More Money, so that's what's to look for, right?
Yes.
All right, so that's great. So
congratulations.
Yeah. The new author, the newly appointed first of two coaches for the Cassie Parks system. What's she calling it now? The
Future Self University.
Future
and
Self University.
I am one of the first Cassie's the original abundance facilitator. I'll be the next one.
You and Vicky. All right. That's going to be great. So, all right. Well, thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it. Man, this has been a great visit. Really, really appreciate it so much. You'll have to come back sometime.
Please, I would love to.
That's like bottom line. Well, you got the link, right? You got the Calendly link. So, do your stuff.
Perfect.
Hook it in.
I will.
Good stuff. Neo and Debbie, as usual, this has been wonderful. I mean, it's kind of a great way to end the week is on the high with Debbie G and Neo Positivity. So thank you guys very much. Thank you, live streamers. Thank you, podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.